back, everyone. It has been a very, 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 very long time since we've done an episode of this. It is the only D&D podcast that matters. It is the Forgotten Table Tales, and I am your DM, Garson. And we are here with my co-host, as always, Chitter.
Ayo, ayo.
And a good friend of ours who's been playing D&D for a long time. Her name is Cowby. Her name is Cowby.
She's also me. She's also.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
I forgot to turn off the noise suppressant so that way I could do my squeaky voice.
Aww. Well, anyway, so briefly speaking, before we get started, you may have noticed that today's episode is not about Crooked Moon, and the reason we're not doing Crooked Moon is, well, I hate to say it.
We've been doing it for so long, and the time has passed.
I'm not gonna lie, like we lost the last episode we did was like back in October, or like late November, and by then I was just like, it felt like we've been gone for so long that talking about the book after such a delay felt kind of anticlimactic, and I was like, maybe it's better we don't do that and come up with a new topic for the return episode. So this week we're actually going to be starting a small mini series. It's only going to be maybe a couple episodes. And we're going to be focusing on a subject of D&D that not a lot of people really know a lot about, but everyone is familiar with it. It's the term that is making stuff that you personally want to include in the game, whether you want to make a class or a race or a quest line or an item. And I swear to God, every time we start doing this, he starts doing this. He starts crying. That's my dog in the background, folks. Apologize for that. No, we're going to be talking about homebrew, which is the concept of making your own material that is not made by Wizards of the Coast and including it in your games. Now, Chitter's going to give a brief history about homebrew, and she's going to be able to explain it better than I can. But before we do that, I just want to make one thing abundantly clear. You making a campaign is kind of like homebrewing. You making a character class, that is homebrewing. There's really not a limitation to what homebrewing is. And I'm going to turn it over to Chitter now to give us some more detailed explanation of that, especially in the history of the current edition of Dungeons & Dragons, which I think is 5th E 2024 edition. So Chitter, go ahead and take it over.
Okay, so just really quickly, just to kind of put us all on the same page, 5e 2024 has its roots in the 2014 edition. There's a lot of hubbub surrounding that, but basically the homebrew scene is basically kind of a mix of the two. If you go on sites like Unearthed Arcana on the Reddit or Stack Exchange or anything really, you do at this point have to specify whether it is 2024 or 2014, but it's not discouraged from doing either one or even doing some mixing. So just to set the stage there's nothing wrong with mixing, or there's nothing wrong with being like, oh, we're going to have 2024 characters in a 2014 campaign, etc., etc. You just have to work on balancing. But anyways, bleh. So the thing with homebrew is that we could go all the way back to 1974 and talking about the history of homebrewing in 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition. The stars will go on. However, I don't think that's fully necessary, and it's actually not really even relevant to the discussion of homebrew today. However, there is something of note that really gave homebrew its rise in the 2014 edition that not a lot of people seem to really know. And that is that any customization was DM specific. Anything. You wanted to customize the look of your spell, you wanted to customize the way a spell like interacted with something, on a flavor level was DM specific. If you wanted to do anything, and people go like, "What are you talking about?" It was not until I got something stuck in my throat. It was it was not until Tasha's came out in 2020 that you could actually that it was considered by Wizards of the Coast approved to be able to flavor already existing spells and already existing abilities. It was not till Tasha's that came out. And that came out at the very, very end of 2020. So for many years for its surge in popularity. Because Tasha's was right around the end of when it got really, really popular. Like, I'm not saying that it stopped being popular, but Tasha's was the last book, I think we can all agree, that gave a really big surge to it on its own. And it's fascinating that for 6 years, especially during the rise of Critical Role, the entirety of Campaign 2, if you wanted to change anything about your characters or
It's gone. Sorry.
she's just
I
quietly
was
looking.
grabbing links. I'm sorry. And some of the links I was grabbing are no longer active on D&D Beyond.
It's okay.
That's why I was like, no, it's gone.
anyways, if you wanted to do anything involving homebrew, it would literally came down to, do you want to do anything with your character beyond what WotC approves, like what WotC gives you? And a lot of people don't realize how insane that is. And I know that a lot of DMs, probably Garson included, don't really remember a time where the idea of customizing spells to fit a character, or like what's another good example of how insane this was? Even like changing how a weapon looked. Not even the mechanical stuff, just how a weapon looked was completely DM specific until Tasha's. And you had to ask every single table you brought it to say, "Hey, can I make my rapier into a katana?" Basically, again, not changing anything about how it functioned. It was just, "Can I have this?"
You know,
as a flavor thing. And so when you're already there within the homebrew world for flavor, homebrew's going to explode because you're there already. So you're like, well, I guess I could change X, Y, or Z. And it really shows in how, for the longest time, even D&D Beyond, as Calby said, was just a homebrew monstrosity. You could still
Yup.
find stuff today that just absolutely makes you go, this is just a different flavored whatchamacallit. Like,
Yup,
it's
yup.
just a different flavor of this other thing. And a lot of questions these days, in the UA like subreddits and whatnot, are a lot like Stack Overflow, where it's like, this is just repetitive. But that's the culture that it gave. It gave a culture of any change you wanted to bring to the table, if it was barely beyond significant, like if it was beyond any level of significance, you were doing it homebrew. And it was wild to think about, but that's the world that we came from. So that's kind of where the history of 5th edition homebrew comes from. And especially because of like Critical Role and the, shall we say, massive influx of people who were not, how shall I say this nicely? Not accustomed to the usual traditions of typical D&D adventures. They were much more inclined to want to do unique stuff and bring over their own stuff to it because again, it's a role-playing game. They want to role play specific things that are important to them. And it brought about something that I don't think a lot of people really generally tend to acknowledge nowadays, and that is the overall ease of homebrew and how accepted it is because of both the influx and the fact that for the majority of that influx, in fact, the almost the entirety of that influx, homebrew was seen as a necessity because so many different worlds were being introduced and so many different people were being introduced. Now, don't get me wrong, homebrew can be good or bad depending on how you do things, but also that influx kind of left older DMs scrambling a little bit because of the fact that's like they're bringing so many unique ideas to the table, they don't quite know what to do with it. So I oh, sorry, my apologies.
No, and I was just gonna say, we're gonna get into that a little bit later after Chitter explains it a little bit more. But that's actually the cornerstone of this series is to talk about the massive influx of homebrew content. Yeah, a lot of it did not go the way people had planned because I want to follow up with what you were saying. One of the most common things that I've seen as a player is the concept of the homebrew class. And on paper, it's usually not a bad idea. But when you get into what it can do, you eventually realize the class can be very broken because the person wanted to go for theming and aesthetics rather than balancing issues. And I think a lot of older DMs did not know how to compete with that when it became an epidemic.
Right. And the thing is that that whole influx, especially when it came to introducing, I noticed this about a lot of different stuff, is that D&D was very restrictive in the early going of 2014. Now, don't get me wrong, they streamlined a lot of stuff, and that was because 4E was, to put it bluntly, a fucking disaster of all these different things that you had to remember. They were trying to fix the problem. The only problem is that when you have something streamlined, a lot of people who want to customize are going to brute force it and make things kind of fall to shit. Like, for example, Apple products. There's nothing wrong with Apple products. Well, I have my own
They're behind
opinions
the
about their,
times.
yeah, I have my opinions about them, but there's nothing functionally stopping you from enjoying and using Apple products. But if you come from an Android product, and this is not about like, oh, Android is better than Apple. This is just the fact of the nature is that Android allows a lot deeper customization while maintaining core functionality. Like you can change your theming, you can change your icons of everything. You can change so much of it to the point where it doesn't even look like a phone anymore and it still functions like the stock Android. You can't really do that with Apple. And a lot of people to give to continue that analogy walked into an Apple like ecosystem expecting the level of Android customability and didn't really find it. So
Yeah.
And again, that comes down to marketing. That's a marketing problem. But what didn't help was that there were even when 5e came out, there were a lot of classes that were cut or changed, and that made it very difficult for even people going from 4e to 5e to really find their footing again, because they were like, "Oh, I want to play as this character that I've made in this new game," which is something that everyone does. We've all done it. We've all taken a character that worked in one game and supplanted it in another with varying levels of success. Ahem. That's besides the point. But you want to do that because that's what it's a character that meant a lot to you. So of course you're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to put Bob in this game and see how Bob works. And what a lot of 4E players found was that Bob really didn't fit all that well. And it wasn't because of anything that they did specifically. It was that Bob filled a very unique niche within 4E, and it was very difficult to find that niche again. So they started making that niche. And I'm just going to say this as someone who has run homebrew campaigns and allows homebrew. Like Garson and Calby can tell you that even in the campaign that I'm going to be running, I'm pretty loose with the amount of homebrew I allow. Like I'm pretty loose. But
Mhm.
that's because I recognize something. And this is something that I'm going to be saying for a lot of this bad homebrew, because a lot of bad homebrew comes down to this simple issue, and it's not something that a lot of DMs like to admit, and certainly I can understand why, is that bad homebrew comes from the fact that the DM doesn't know how to balance it. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that you don't know how to balance something. But you also have to come clean with your players and say, "Hey, um, I don't know how the fuck I'm going to balance that." Which again is totally valid. It's just something that you kind of have to level with your players and go, "So this is going to be a little interesting for me to introduce, but let's see what happens." And I myself am of the mindset of a homebrew is never bad. It is just unbalanced, because that's what it comes down to. That's what everything good, bad, shitty, everything that people like to criticize, everything that people like to talk crap about, even when it comes to like UA and whatnot, and like what makes good UA versus bad UA, what makes the cut into books, what doesn't, is it simply comes down to, is this balance? Can the DM balance this? And sometimes a DM is going to walk into a party that is ridiculously overpowered. Looking at my campaign with multiple stats and 20s for everyone. And I'm going, oh, I'm going to have to up the difficulty here because everyone is going to be rolling really well. Now, some DMs would say that I'm running a bad campaign. I'm running an unbalanced not even unbalanced. I'm just running a bad campaign. And I would look at them and say, "No, it's just you don't know how to balance it. You don't have the skill set to balance it, and that's not a bad thing. It's just you don't know how to do that." And I'm not saying that I'm better because I can balance it. It's that I have a lot more experience with it, and that's the type of campaign that I'm comfortable balancing. I'm comfortable balancing a more powerful campaign. And I think that's something that we're probably going to see tonight, is that a lot of it is overpowered, but At the same time, a DM could match that level of insanity and come back and say, "Hey, you wanted to rock this? You wanted to go all out with this? Cool. I'm going to be bringing this to the table, or I'm bringing these restrictions to the table that's in the book." And again, it just comes down to recognizing that restrictions. Don't get me wrong, there are still some bad homebrews, but I will admittedly be taking a more defensive stance because I know the issues of balancing versus actually bad homebrew. I apologize for rambling so long.
No, it's okay.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's okay. So here's what I want to do for tonight's episode with the guests. We already got Calby sending me some bad homebrew spells that I was able to open up. I think she's still looking for a couple more links, I assume.
Unfortunately, a lot of them I can't access anymore
Okay.
because,
Uh,
yeah.
But that's okay. We're going to be talking about various levels of homebrew, but we're going to be talking about spells and classes, but there's one thing I want to start with because it's the impetus for why I wanted to do this series. And that is what I would like to call the trying to fit another franchise into D&D homebrew. And why I bring this up is, as sad as it is to say, this never fucking works. And the reason I say it is not because it's unbalanced or you can't do it. It's because there's always, how do I put this delicately? If you're a fan of a particular franchise, whether it be an anime, a manga, a comic book, or a video game, when you try to supplement that world into D&D, you run into one of the major problems that most people have when creating a D&D homebrew, in that you are trying to fit everything that you know about the franchise into this homebrew, but it doesn't really translate that well into the game mechanics of D&D. And I have a couple of examples. The co-host see where this is, but this is gonna be the first one that we're gonna be talking about, and this is this little chestnut of a DM. Now, what this is the One Piece tabletop player's handbook for the Dungeons and Devil Fruits version of 5e. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear. The person who made this, I'm not saying you did a bad job of including this. If you're watching this, I'm not saying that you made a bad homebrew. What I am using you as an example of is trying to fit a franchise's rules into D&D and pointing out why it doesn't necessarily work. It's not shot against you. I think you did a fantastic job at trying to create something. I don't want to take that away from you, but I want to be honest. So just, tempering that.
Yeah, if I may really quickly, and this is something that I think we're going to find a lot of in this book, is that bringing a franchise over. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Bringing over a franchise is not necessarily impossible, but you have to temper your expectations and realize that a lot of what you're going to be doing isn't necessarily this. A lot of what you're going to be doing is reflavoring things. One of the best examples would actually be the Star Wars one, which is a lot more of just reflavoring and recontextualizing existing stuff. Now, again, we're talking about the bad stuff here, but I want to throw that in as like a guideline between trying to create something new versus recontextualizing and reflavoring. Because a lot of what you're going to see in this book, and I've taken a look at some of it, is that the stuff that works is mainly that. It's mainly the reflavored stuff. It's the recontextualized stuff. It's not the new stuff. And that's something that a lot of people, when they're bringing over a franchise, kind of have to sit with and really think about. Because you're not going to be creating a lot of new stuff. If you are creating a lot of new stuff, you haven't done your research because there's stuff that you can reflavor, recontextualize. For example, again, bringing it back to that Star Wars example on Demiplane, for example, that's just a recontextualization of 5e. They made Star Wars by recontextualizing it, and it works. It's not because Star Wars is a better franchise than One Piece.
Mhm.
It's because they took the stuff that already worked and just gave it different meanings.
So with that being
So
said, we're not going to do our usual deep dive into the book because this book is 217 pages. We'd be here all night just talking about this one thing, and I don't really want it to be like the one part of it. Instead, I'm going to just briefly point out some things that I noticed, and let's start with obviously the fact that, well, okay, whoever made this, I'm sorry you can't use the images. That's a big problem I'm noticing you have. But let's start with the classes. Um, and you can already tell what exactly they're trying to do with the recontextualization of the classes. For example, bruisers are basically a mix of monk and barbarian, chemist or druids, devil forged or warlock, hybrid or sorcerers, marksmen or rangers, martial artists are monk, so monk get 2. Priest is cleric, rogue is rogue, skald is bard, tinkerer is wizard, and warrior is fighter. Now, the reason why I bring all this up is because this is the first part of it. When you look immediately at this, you're like, oh, okay, so they're just like reskins of basically certain types of classes from D&D. And that's a good thing, right? Here's the problem, though. The features. We got to talk about the features because this is where things kind of get a little bit out of hand. For example, Brawler, which is basically a mixture of martial artist, monk, and barbarian. On paper, a monk and a barbarian by themselves are not that overpowered. When you combine them, you start noticing that there's a lot of problems with that because monk and barbarian are those two classes that when you multi-class together, it can really break a campaign. So,
yeah.
for example, um, if you were to give for example, let's take a look at this. On armor defense, when you're not wearing any armor or not using a shield, your armor class is equal to 10 plus your dex modifier plus your constitution modifier. Now, okay, in regular D&D, armor defense is a thing. It's pretty simple. Calby, real quick, do you know what armor defense usually is? Is it like just dex or constitution modifier?
That is Dex mod, I believe.
Okay, but in this version, you're adding your constitution modifier to it. So let's say you have a 20 in both dex and constitution. That's an armor class of 20 that you get at level 1.
Oh, nope, Garson.
Mhm.
Garson. I'm just going to say this right now.
Mm-hmm.
That is a straight from a barbarian because armor class for a unarmored defense for a barbarian is 10 plus dex mod plus con. That is straight.
Is it like a particular style of barbarian, or is it like just normal barbarian on armored defense?
Normal barbarian.
Okay, well, that part was a little bit... Okay, still, though, the point still applies that... Okay, maybe that's not a good example, then. Never mind, then. But...
This is what we mean about research, people.
Okay, I'm also going to be honest.
Do your research.
Yeah.
Always do your research.
Well, no, because to me, like, when
Always
I think of an armored defense, I just think of the dex one for monk. That's what came to my mind.
Oh, I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of mage armor.
No, I'm not thinking of mage armor. That's a spell, and you get it and it gives you +3. Even then, mage armor by itself is not that broken. Like, +3 to armor class with not wearing armor, but you gotta burn a spell slot. Eh. But, yeah, so...
If I may.
Yes.
I'm just going to take a quick look here. Going to quickly. Sorry, I'm just quickly pulling. It's a little bit small on my end. Do you mind kicking the link my way?
Sure, give me 1 second. I'm also going to say briefly that the one thing I think is a little bit hard to read, and this is just me speaking here for this book. Guy, whoever made this, I'm sorry to say, you really need to. You need to fix these images or remove them because I can't read the book.
So, I'm just going to quickly just see here. Race, class. Okay, so something that does seem a bit on the side of where it's a little bit ridiculous, and I will say this:
Uh-huh.
it is like, for example, charge right through, and that
Oh,
one
yeah, that
is
one.
so as long as you have one fury point, which if I'm looking here, uh, fury starting at second level. Okay, so it is from second level. Fury should be its own thing at second level. That's like invocations. I'm just gonna say that right now. That is like an invocation.
Hmm.
Um, but so long as you have one fury point, and this should have been like a later one, is you have advantage on con saving throws against traps, spells, poison, disease, or breath attacks. To gain this benefit, you can't be incapacitated, which incapacitated is deadly on its own anyway, but the way that you just have, so long as you have one, you're not even spending it. So long as
Right.
you have one, you have advantage on basically con saves from everything except drinking.
No, that is pretty.
And
Yeah.
that, for example, I would look at it even in mine and go, we're gonna work on that. We're gonna flavor this a little bit better. We're going to do something with this. So, for example, if this were me, and again, this is me going like, hey, talking to a character's like, I want to be One Piece. I want to play this character,
Mhm.
and I see charge right through. And I'm like, so first of all, we're going to have you earn that. So we're going to place that a little higher. So say like at level I would say at least at level 9 if we're breaking in half, but level 13 if we're not. So I'm going to be like, okay, you're going to fucking earn that. But second of all, if we are breaking it up, then we're also going to have it so that you have to spend a fury point. And again, that would come into being like how many fury points, but it really does kind of show that the whole system there really should have just been a reflavoring instead of trying to do something different. Because, again, no offense to this person. This person clearly is trying something and I love it. It's just that it's very, very, very hard to balance. This is something that I would find trouble in balance.
Well, actually, and this goes a little bit farther along because we're not going to focus primarily on this class, but look at the level 6 ability if you could read it. Spirit Assault. Starting at level 6, you instinctively learn how to incorporate a little bit of hockey into your attacks. Your unarmored strikes and bruiser weapon count as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. Now, here's the problem I think here's where I want to really point out this. And that's this line right here. Incorporate a little bit of hockey. I'm going to ask you two something really important. Do either of you two know what that term is?
No.
No.
I will tell you what that is. So this is taken from the One Piece world. In the One Piece world, there is something known as haki, which is like spiritual energy. There are 3 types of it: observation, armament, and conquerors. Observation lets you do foresight, basically see the future, dodge attacks type of shit. Think of like the the alert ability going off all the time. Like, if a rogue can know how to avoid attacks. The armament hockey is you're using your willpower to beat the shit out of someone. That's the one they're trying to incorporate in this ability. But the one that everyone really wants to talk about is Conqueror's Hockey, which basically lets you impose your will over a bunch of people, and you can basically just knock them the fuck out using your mind powers. The problem I have with this is there are so many ways we already have magical powers incorporated into D&D. But why would you at level 6 be using hockey, and you're only using a little bit of hockey? And you're only using that for flavor purposes. Hockey allows you to, and I'm not even kidding here because this happened in the show just recently episode, where Luffy's grandpa jumped up in the air. This guy is like pushing fucking 70, and his fist with hockey on it was the force of a thermonuclear bomb. Like,
I'm going to say this.
Mm-hmm.
I myself actually really like this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why I say this. And again, this comes back to knowing a little bit more about flavoring within D&D.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a beautiful way to show it, because this type of character is not magical. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is with martial characters and wanting them to be magical, because, well, everyone wants to wield part of the weave, basically. But what makes it so fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
to me at least, with this, is that this is basically making everything moon touched. And that's wonderful for a 6th level ability. And again, it comes back to the flavor thing that we're struggling with,
Mm-hmm.
like what we're going back and forth with. But for the actual ability itself, removing the flavor and purely focusing on the mechanics, this is one where I would genuinely look at and go, I think I'm okay with this. It's not ridiculously overpowered,
Mm-hmm.
and it eliminates you needing to buy specific weapons or like doing other things to make it magical. Because magical resistance is a thing, and at level 6, you're going to be encountering a lot more of it. So for me personally, at least for the mechanics, I am totally okay with Spirit Assault. That is one of the few where I'm looking at it and I'm going,
So,
dude, we do not have a problem at all.
well, okay, Calby, I want your opinion on this now.
Mhm.
What do you think about using like a power source from from the franchise that you're using to make this homebrew, and what do you think about it if you don't really understand the context? Is it like, you would be okay with something like that if you were running this as a campaign?
Not really, because if I don't know anything about how it's actually supposed to be implemented and used properly, then players who are more experienced with the show and have more like understanding could easily just fuck me over as a DM.
You know what, Calby? That's actually a great explanation, because that was a concern I had with One Piece in particular, because the hockey situation aside, like, the ability is okay by itself. I don't have a problem with the ability. I have a problem with the fact that if you have a player at the table who is very familiar with One Piece, like, again, like I was, I could easily go like, actually, my armament hockey cannot stop this Logia power because it cancels it out. So by that logic, I should be able to punch this guy who has the ability to turn into lightning and never worry about his attacks. He's basically, I basically took away your fight. And then they could always argue that, oh, well, that's how it works in the show. And that's the point I'm trying to get across, is that when you start implementing stuff that, if you don't know what it is for basic abilities, you're giving people who have never seen the show a handicap compared to those who have seen it. And obviously we can't really go more
Yeah.
into this ability because I can't fucking read anything else because the pictures are. Oh my! I'm sorry. Like I love the concept of what you guys are doing, but I can't read half this goddamn book because the artwork takes up. Who did this? Who designed this? Come on! Hang on. Okay, at least all right. So there is a solution to that. But yeah, that's just the fighter. There's obviously different forms of it, and then of course there's like, okay, here's something I want to point out. Conqueror of the Three Worlds. Like this is kind of another example of what I'm talking about. Let me see if I can put a highlight on. I cannot actually. Oh, okay. Well, that stinks. So let me just read this real quick because this is like again using the power of the hockey thing. At 11th level, you learn to emit a large blast of draconic energy. As an action, you can expend 2 fury points to hit the ground. When it erupts everything around you with energy for a brief but deadly instant. Any creature of your choice within 20 feet of you must make a dex saving throw against your fury save DC. A creature takes fire, thunder, or lightning damage equal to 2 scrapper die, plus your constitution modifier on a failed saving throw, or half as much on a successful one. You need to understand what scrapper die is, but basically what I'm saying is that this is basically like, I'm going to punch the ground, and now I'm going to basically destroy everything around me at level 11.
Yeah, no.
And it goes
Unless
on
you're
like
just
that.
doing a level 15 run campaign, no.
And then it goes on like that because, like, when you read more of these abilities, they're not balanced in the sense that they're trying to balance the class. They're trying to fit it in One Piece, but the problem with One Piece in particular is, well,
It's fucking broken.
yeah, actually, it kind of is because you got people who can turn into dragons. You got people who can call down lightning. You got people who can summon the darkness of the void itself or summon meteors, and that all ties into the devil fruits. And these abilities are meant to correlate with another book that the author made with it called the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia. But I'm just looking at this and I'm like, what in the why would I be using magic? Why would I not be able to be more of like a brawler or a scrapper? If all I have to do is punch the fucking ground, why would I need fireball?
Fireball! Da, 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 da.
And
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at this going like, the DM clearly has, how do I say this?
Mhm.
The DM has a group in mind when they're making this. They have people in mind while making this. This is not meant for the common use. This is meant for One Piece nerds mixed with D&D nerds in that tiny little bit of the Venn diagram for both of them. This is very much a case of, this is a very, very niche one, like very, very niche homebrew.
you got a point there, and I don't dispute that, but I do want to point one thing out in regards to it. The reason why we're bringing this particular one up as an example of bad homebrew is, I know I'm skipping most of the book, and I am apologizing for that, but it's really hard to read this book, for one, and two, it feels like, okay, let's take a look at the Ranger stuff, which is the devil's, or like, let's just go down to the Ranger. Now, if you've never seen the show, character is represented by Usopp, who is supposed to be the weakest member of the Straw Hat Pirates. Now he's not a bad character. Okay, he's a good guy. He is a bit of a coward, but the point is that he's not really meant to be anything more than the strongest human possible. And that's it. He's not supposed to have any devil fruit. He gets a few unique ammo types, but that's pretty much it. And already I'm starting to notice that there's some stuff that is a little bit hard to point out. For example, I'm glad that you can't either get a rifle or bullets, or rifle or pistol. But let's just look at a few of these abilities, and then I want to go over to the next part of the explanation of why this isn't like what bad homebrew can be. And that is, let's just look at stuff like a few of the class abilities for Ranger. Now, Chitter, do you have this pulled up on your end?
Let me see here. Going down to the Ranger example.
It's marksman, but yeah, look up marksman for the classes, and then that'll be the one we're looking at right now.
Okay. Okay.
I am now back to being a Lalafell.
Oh no!
Oh
Why?
yes.
Calby, for those of you who don't know, Calby is also joining our Final Fantasy 14 stuff, so that's what he's doing. That's what she's doing on that end, and she chose
Yes.
Lalafell.
Even though I haven't played since like 2018.
Don't worry, you only missed a lot.
You only missed a lot.
No shit. I have up to Shadowbringer, and then I need to get the other ones.
Yeah, no, because Endwalker is really good at Dawn Trail. Dawn Trail. Anyway, Chair, did you pull up the class?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at the marksman real quick. Starting at first level, you're focus your aim and killing intent onto one creature to target their weak points. When you hit a creature with an attack using a firearm or sling, you can mark the target for 1 minute. The first time on each of your turns that you hit the marked target, you deal damage to it, including when you mark it. You increase the damage by 1d4. You can't use this feature to make a creature a number. You can use this feature to mark a creature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. This feature's extra damage increases when you reach the certain levels. The classic in this class to 1d6 at 6th level, 1d8 at 14th level. Okay, so that's not too bad, right? Lock on. Pretty basic ability, right?
That's just Hunter's Mark.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, you don't use a spell slot. Now, you have your own resource for it, but you don't use a spell slot.
Not sure how I feel about that, but okay.
I mean, okay, obviously, yeah, I know. Everyone who has used who's used Hunter's Mark, they don't want it to be a spell slot. I get it. I'm just saying that it's something to point out, because when you take away an ability that's balanced by an in-game mechanic, in this case spell slots, and you give it its own resource, it does tend to lead to some unintended consequences. And already I can tell where that's a problem, and that's at level 2 with the fighting style. So there are four different fighting styles: close quarter shooter, deadeye, sharpened shot, and 2-weapon fighting. Again, Ranger stuff, I get it. This is just typical Ranger stuff. But the one that I want to really look at is the 2-weapon fighting. Because you have to have a sword, like a melee weapon and a pistol in one hand. You can't have 2 weapons that are both melee. And I kind of can see where they're going with this, but I don't really like it.
Okay, now that everything's fixed, I am going to have to bounce for now. I'm getting a little lightheaded from all the pressure buildup. I'm going to go take a shower.
Okay, go take a shower. Take care, Calby. Thank you for joining us.
Of course,
thank
no
you.
problem.
Thank you for joining while you could.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye. So anyway, back to and your model got to never mind. Hang on, folks. I'm gonna fix that. There we go. Okay. So anyway, back to what I was saying. I don't really like this because, for example, which one would you like when you look at this? The Deadeye gives you more chances to hit, but the Sharpened Shot gives you more damage. And already by level 2, we have the lock-on ability that increases the damage by 1d4 plus 2 plus whatever the damage is for the weapon. And that could actually break the fight pretty easily at that level, especially at level 2 where you're dealing like multiple shots per before you actually get hit.
Yeah.
And the reason why go ahead. You were saying?
Yeah, it's something that I'm looking at, and I'm just kind of thinking to myself, like, is this a good idea? What exactly is the point here? And it's very, I don't know how to say this. It's very interesting, but not in a good way.
Exactly. I feel the exact same way about that. And then when I'm also looking at when you look at regular lock on, it feels like they're just trying to increase the damage by it, but then at level 6, we get greater lock on, which adds the wisdom modifier to the attacks as well. And those two don't cancel each other out, because you still have the lock on damage, but then you add your wisdom modifier to it. And that means that you get the 1d6 plus whatever your wisdom modifier is, plus if you take the sharpen shot ability. Okay, so doing the math here, let's say you took lock on, sharpen shot, and you had greater lock on, okay? And you had a 20 in wisdom. We like big round numbers here. 20s are probably easy to come at this point because you had that ability improvement score at level 4.
Yeah.
So that's plus 7 damage if you hit. And that's not, and with a potential increase to 1d6, that is almost 13 additional damage per shot. And at level 5, you get extra attack, which means you're already guaranteeing at least 14 damage per attack round just by using action, and you're not using anything else but your base weapon. And if your base weapon has a bonus to like particular damage, it could be very broken just to have that long range attack. And you're a long range fighter, which means you're dealing quite a lot of damage from where they're not going to be able to return fire to you.
Yeah, that doesn't feel right.
And it gets weirder because then at level 10, you get access to something called Trick Shot, which basically is just the VAT system from Fallout.
This person clearly had a lot of ideas, and something about ideas that not a lot of people like to talk about. And again, this is not on them in any way, shape, or form. This is from every creator. Hell, I did an anime transformation as a D&D character once, so I'm not above this type of shit. But the thing that a lot of people don't seem to get, and this is again, no insult to anyone, it's that, sweetheart, you need to exercise restraint. You need to have things hit the cutting floor. You need to have a lot of things hit the cutting floor for it to be.
I just realized something, and you're going to hate this even more. I can't tell if these are at all archetypes. Like, for example, I can't tell if any of these are archetypes or just fighting styles. I can't tell what marksman archetype happened on, because it looks like that happens at 3rd level, which means every class in this marksman buildup has access to the lock-on ability and the extra damage, and potentially something called one shot, one kill, where you become an unparalleled marksman. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature marked by your lock-on feature with a firearm and sling, you can choose to attempt to execute the creature instead of dealing extra damage. You basically get Mark of Death.
I love that. I love that so much.
I don't know, like, oh, and then of course you get access to the hockey abilities, which I talked about earlier, in the form of Ascended Awareness, which lets you, again, if you've watched the show, the observation hockey lets you see through fucking walls. So letting that point that out there.
You know, just as you do.
Yeah.
Just as you fucking do.
So I'm going to say this. We could go more into what the classes represent, but let's be fair here. These are just reskin classes with some additional abilities. They're not really, I would say, game-breaking in the traditional sense. That honor goes to the other half of this book. The fucking devil fruits.
Yes, the devil fruit. I remember you talking about those, and not in a good way.
Okay, I will explain why. First and foremost, and by the way, I just sent you the link so you can take a look at it too. But let's start with the first thing. If you've watched the show, devil fruits are are like a cornerstone of the franchise. They allow any normal human being who bites into them to gain incredible powers. Here's the fucking problem with that. The devil fruits, you can only have one devil fruit at a time unless you're Blackbeard, the main bad guy. Then you can have 2, but we don't know how he pulled that off. And if you eat more than one, you explode.
Heh.
Yeah. But here's the problem I have with this. The devil fruits are, without a doubt, the problem I have the most with this homebrew. Because they all are in this book. There's over 100 pages of homebrewing devil fruits here. And here's where the problem is. These things are way too unbalanced. For example, let's take the Bara Nomi, the dividing fruit. Now, what this is supposed to do is, it basically means that if you get cut, your body splits, you split your body in half, basically. So you're now immune to all slashing damage because you can't be cut. It says right here, you are immune to slashing damage. Your bodies can divide to avoid the slashes from weapons. Do you know how easy it is to have that basically break a campaign in 15 seconds? When people use swords and fists?
Oh dear God.
Right, and this is an
Once
uncommon
you-
fruit.
Let me see here. You're weak to water and sea stone. Whoop de fucking do. Just avoid having a shower.
No. They mean like if you fall in the water after eating one of these things, you're basically you basically can't swim anymore. You will die if you fall in the ocean.
Let any part of your body. Okay, can float telekinetically up to 30 feet away from you. Appendages act similar to. That's not similar to the Mei-chan cantrip.
Yep, but
Oh.
it does mean that you gain 30 feet of range on your melee attacks.
Good God.
Now, let's rewind the clock a little bit back to the brawlers. What did the brawlers have? A lot of being able to punch things. Now you gave them fucking range.
Oh, I love that.
And now you do get some weaknesses in the form of the CNC stone, but if you're on an island or on a boat and you don't fall over, that's not a problem. Now is it?
God, I love spells. I love items that are just. That is a very very interesting way of doing things.
Oh, but it gets better. It gets better. See, every fruit has the potential to awaken, which basically makes it super powered and unlocks a really overpowered ability for it. Now, obviously, depending on the fruit, it's going to have an impact into what actually happens to it again. But this one's called Telekinetic Carnival. Once you've awakened your power as an action to cast telekinesis without expending any charges or material components, or any number of objects or creatures of your choice that you can see within range of this spell, no concentration required, mind you, with a duration of 1 minute or until you fall unconscious, your divided body parts can be used to increase the range or control of multiple objects simultaneously. Additionally, you can telekinetically control yourself as if using telekinesis for the duration, even affecting your feet. You can't use this action again for 24 hours. So I'm glad they put that limit on there.
Yeah, it's great. I love that.
But you also can use one of your charges to conjure barrage, or use catapult, or blur, which are all really good utility spells, mind you. I'm just saying that's the first point. That was the first one. That was on page 1 of the uncommon devil fruits, and already it gives you an immunity to slashing damage. So anyone who uses a sword just fucking you defeat instantly because they can't hurt you. Magic swords don't do shit unless they have armament hockey, in which case that would be the bypass system. But then you can also immediately use Mage Hand and give yourself 30 extra yards, feet or greater when you are attacking with unarmed strikes. Which, if you were a monk and you're able to send your fist 30 feet away and still punch someone with the force of a bullet, I'm pretty sure that breaks the game.
Just a tiny bit.
And it doesn't get any better. These are the uncommon ones. I can throw a dart at this thing and point out why there's a problem with it.
These really should have been, and this is me saying this again, these really should have been just reflavored magical items.
Well, unfortunately, they're not. These are strictly items that are designed to do only one thing, and that is to incorporate as much of this world into this campaign as possible.
Yeah. I'm just saying that it, or at least do like a slumbering, like a dormant, slumbering, awakened thing where you get bits and pieces of it for fuck's sake.
The Trashu Trashu Nomi, the trash fruit. You're immune to poison damage. Okay, I'm just reading a few of these because I think this is kind of interesting. Like garbage disposal, use the poison spray cantrip. Additionally, you can use an action to create a magical garbage bag, which has the properties of a bag of holding. You can create a number of these equal to your proficiency bonus. If the bag is destroyed or stolen, you can use an action to magically teleport it back to your hands. Okay, so let me get this straight. I can create an unlimited amount of bags of holding?
Apparent, not unlimited. It's equal to your proficiency bonus.
Chitter, if I can make 2 of these damn things, that's enough to make it overpowered.
Yeah, I had a table that defeated a Tarask with 2 bags of holding.
The Naku Naku Nomi, the crying fruit. With this power, you get to summon the ability. You get to make people cry with this one. Tidal Wave of Sorrow. Once you awaken your power, you can use this as an action to release a massive wave of crying gas in a 60-foot radius centered on you. Each creature of your choice in the area must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, creatures are overwhelmed by sorrow for 1 minute. Affected creatures are frightened and blinded for the duration of the spell, and it has to spend its turn crying uncontrollably, and must take the dash action to move away from you for the safest available route on each of its turns, unless there is nowhere to move. Additionally, the tears of crying creatures are contagious and will spread to any creature that starts its turn within 10 feet of a crying creature, forcing it to make the saving throw, yada yada yada. A crying target can repeat the saving throw at the end of its turn, ending the effect on itself on a success. Additionally, any surface a crying creature moves across become difficult terrain due to the pooling tears for 1 minute. You can't use this ability again for 24 hours.
I might use these for bosses during campaigns just to make people hate
I'm
me.
laughing at this because this is such a fucking stupid idea.
Like, this is not from the show, right?
Actually, some of these are from the show. All of these are based on real ones from the show in one way or another. Oh, but wait a minute.
That.
Like this one. This one's really funny. The Jacka Nomi, the jacket fruit. This is a real one, by the way. This is a real devil fruit I've seen in action, by the way.
Huh.
So, you gain proficiency with disguise kits. You, as an action, you can transform into a jacket form, which can move through the space of other creatures, which is treated as difficult terrain, and be worn by a willing creature of your choice. Your weight becomes 0 for the duration, not including any items or equipment you are carrying. An allied creature must spend a bonus action to wear or remove you from their body. The form lasts for 1 minute. While worn by an allied creature, you share the same space as the creature wearing you. Your movement speed becomes 0 and you move with the creature wearing you. If the wearer gains full cover while wearing you, if it's targeted by a spell, effect, or attack, you can choose to become the target instead. Both you and the wearer can still act on your turn, but the wearer can choose to let you roll for any strength or dex checks and save using it during its turn, using your roll in place of its own. If a spell or effect would force you to become grappled, restrained, or knocked prone or pushed, it also affects the wearer until they remove you from their body. You can spend 1 devil fruit charge to attempt to take control of an unwilling creature. Okay, so you can see already why this is a problem, right?
Just a little bit.
Alright, once awakened, you can use an action to toss magical jackets up to 5 humanoid creatures of your choice within 30 feet of you. The target must make a wisdom saving throw or become controlled by who's wearing the jacket. While controlled, they are affected by the Dominate Person spell for 1 minute. You can't use this action again for 24 hours. That seems a little bit weaker compared to the other ones. Like the tidal wave of infinite crying, and this one is just, I threw a jacket on you.
To be fair, they do have Dominate Person, which is a ridiculous spell.
Well, again, we could go into this more and more, and we could probably point out some more issues, but here's the thing I'm trying to get across here. the fact is that the reason why this is the more egregious section of the other system is the fact that when you get right down to it, these devil fruits are the epitome of not being balanced. And the reason they're not balanced is because that's how the show incorporates a lot of the devil fruits. They are meant to not to be balanced because not every devil fruit is meant to be good. But when you're limited to only one of these things and you don't know what you get until after you take a bite into it, it potentially has the problem of ruining your character before you even get started. Why would the dividing fruit help me if I was a marksman? It would help me if I was a brawler or maybe a barbarian. I could see that being the case. But if I took it and now I'm immune to cutting and I was always far away, what's the point?
It really comes down to risk versus reward, with too much risk and not enough reward.
And the worst part is there is a good chance that someone, including your DM, could give you a really crappy fruit because you weren't paying attention. Because the thing is that one of the things that the book actually says, and this is actually at the beginning of it, should I allow my players to view this book? The question on whether players should be privy to this compendium is a valid concern. Perhaps you crafted a scenario where players uncover a book detailing all known devil fruits, a treasure mentioned in the Dungeons and Dragons yada 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 section. So, should such a situation arise, there are several paths you can take. One approach is to present this encyclopedia as is, with the caveat that the devil fruit abilities described can vary among users. A more restricted option is to let players see only the devil fruit names, classification and appearance, and general description, keeping the exact stats and precise abilities under wraps to prevent metagaming. If you're particularly wary of metagaming, consider unrevealing a condensed version showcasing a select few known fruits, accompanied by a rudimentary description without delivering into specifics. So basically, there is a scenario where the book is even saying, don't show this to the players.
Huh.
And I think that's kind of a bit of a bad idea if you're a DM, because like, okay, there are fruits like, for example, the Inu Inu Nomi model golden retriever that turns you into a golden retriever hybrid. But 2 fruits down, you get the panther fruit. Which one would you rather be if you were going to turn into an animal? The golden retriever or the panther?
Yeah. And really, even with the known fruit, like, this is way too many options for
Yeah.
something that you can only get one of ever.
Unless, of course, you
Like,
die,
there's
but then the fruit just recycles back into the world.
and let's call a spade a spade. This is not like attunement. Because attunement, there are 3 of them, but also you can unattune if it doesn't work.
Yeah, and there's also a level of really bad unbalancing when you get to the rare devil fruits compared to the uncommon ones. The uncommon ones are a little bit more of the weaker side of the fruits, but just to give you an example of how bad the rare ones can go, I want to show you the Pero Pero Nomi, the candy creation fruit. Now, this is a rare one, but you can create objects, weapons, or structures made of candy. These objects have a hardness and weight similar to steel, but can be sharpened and colored as you desire. As an action, you can create a candy object the size of up to a 5-foot cube. The object lasts for 1 hour or until you dismiss it. Weapons you create from candy have the same properties as their normal counterparts, but are considered magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance, and you have proficiency with any candy weapon you create. People, if you don't know what that is, it's essentially Pact of the Blade in candy form.
Yeah, that's something special for that particular warlock. It needs to be a focus.
Like, let's say I was, yeah, and even then you have to spend levels into it to get the best abilities. This one, all you have to, if I were to put this into the game, and let's say the barbarian found this thing and ate it, are you telling me that he would not want to have a magical axe that he could conjure up at any moment? And it gets better because one of the spells that the candy fruit has is Mage Armor. And remember, we were just talking about this earlier, where the Brawler had access to unarmored defense, where if they weren't wearing armor, they got Constitution and Dex armor class. Let's add 3 more to that just for having this.
Actually, no, Garson. That's not how that works. I am going to throw in that's not how that works.
Oh, it's not how. Why?
That was thrown into the errata and given proper clarification. If you use Mage Armor, it overrides unarmored defense.
Oh, it does?
It does.
Okay, good. I was about to say, I didn't know that, so I'm grateful for that. That makes it a little less overpowered for a barbarian, but I mean, you still get 9 freaking spell slots. For example, you get Tezzer's Flying Disc, Mage Armor, Web, Condor of Arrows, Black Tentacles, wow, and Wall of Stone. And you get that every day.
Yep.
And then, of course, and there's other stuff like the bomb fruit, which lets you turn stuff into bombs, or the sticky substance fruit, which is actually flammable. And it goes on.
It just
goes on.
Yeah, like one of these would be a reward for a campaign at most.
But I'm going to read you the most broken devil fruit. And I'm not kidding here when I say this, because in the show, they have said this is the most broken devil fruit they've ever seen. It's called the Hobby Nomi, the toy fruit. Let me read what this does. I'm just going to read the first ability. The first. Just trust me on this one.
And it's only a rare?
Trust me on this one, because they kind of explain how the first one works. All right. So this is the ability you get from eating the fruit. It's called Toy Transformation. As an action, you can touch a creature within 5 feet of you and force it to make a Constitution saving throw against your Devil Fruit save DC. On a failed save, the creature is transformed into a toy version of itself, taking on the stats of a Monodrome. The little clockwork guys. This transformation is permanent, unless removed by Greater Restoration or similar effect. Otherwise, its personality and mental ability scores remain the same. You can also determine its size, tiny to gargantuan. The creature also loses any ability to cast spells, and any special abilities it may have had in its original form. While in toy form, the creature is charmed by you and cannot harm you. You can erase its memories while it was a toy. If you fail to 0 hit points, fall unconscious, or fall victim to your C weakness, every creature under the effect of your toy transformation reverts back to its original form. Alternatively, a creature can be freed from this effect with the Greater Restoration or Wish spell. A creature that succeeds on saving throw against your toy transformation or is otherwise reverted back to its original form is immune to the effects for 24 hours. Okay. Do you want to know why this is a broken ability?
I can already tell, but go on.
Because you are essentially able to one-tap anything if they fail the con saving throw. But it gets better, because then you can force them to make a contract with you and they have to serve you.
Yes.
And when you get to your awakened ability, you get to do all of that I just described, but within 30 feet of you. And the character who has this is a character called Sugar. And what they didn't include about this fruit, and I know because I'm a fan of One Piece, yes, 30 feet. What I know from One Piece is that this also makes you virtually immortal because it makes you forever young. So the only way to stop this from happening is you have to either A, fall unconscious, you have to fall into the ocean, or someone has to cast Greater Restoration and Wish. And I'm telling you this right now, no DM prepares someone to have Wish. No TM prepares to have Greater Restoration on the big bad guy. You can run up to Vecna and touch that motherfucker, and there is a world where they get a nat 1, and Vecna turns into a toy soldier for you. And he has to obey you.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a rare. It gets there's more. Like, for example, you have the hormones fruit, the stone control fruit, the genie lamp fruit. Let that sink in for a second. There's a fruit that lets you summon a genie out of your belly button.
Yeah, this One Piece was a very unbalanced, shall we say, franchise.
Right, but the thing is, when you are trying to convert this to D&D, you already can tell where the problems lie. You're not making a compelling campaign setting. You're making a fantasy world based on your fan fiction, but the fan fiction, so many devil fruits. Yeah, that's true. There are a lot of devil fruits, but that's the thing I'm trying to point out. If I had if I'm playing a campaign, and let's say I lucked on the loot table and won the hobby fruit, where's the fucking challenge? I mean, they can still pass the Constitution saving throw, but I can just wait till they're knocked prone and then like, oh, disadvantage, touch. Now you're my slave.
Jeez.
And we haven't even gotten to the powerful ones, the Logias. Now, and here's some other one, like the Shiro Nomi, the castle fruit. This turns you into a castle, into a bastion. That everyone can like go into you, and you get tank treads and cannons, and you get to turn into like a giant fucking fortress, and it gives you extra power and all that. And they included that too. I kind of like what they're trying to do here, but this just doesn't work for fucking this does not work for D&D is what I'm trying to get across here.
Yeah, this is not a D&D one, yeah.
No, it's not. It is definitely not. And I feel bad because I like what the guy was doing, but I don't. Oh, the Rocky Nomi, the luck fruit. Okay, so this one it's also kind of interesting because it basically means you steal their luck and can give them disadvantage on rolls.
Jeez.
Yep. And we have like the mind control fruit, the blood manipulation fruit, the growing in size fruit, the ton fruit, the sickness fruit, the Nico Nomi model lion. My point is that if you're playing a game like this and you only have access to one of these things, how do you know what you're going to get as a good one? How do you know it's a good, like, for example, I could put a rare fruit in the beginning of the game and say it's an uncommon fruit. You would not know that because I am under no obligation to show you this book. If I don't show you this book, you have to go out in your gut. And you could easily end up eating the fruit that turns you into a Dalmatian.
That is ridiculous.
And I just want to like scroll down a little bit more to point this out because I want to make one last these are the very rare ones, okay? This is like the last category, but these ones are the ones where things just get broken as all hell. For example, the Goro Nomi, gold manipulation. I don't even look at this fucking thing.
That is so much. That is not one.
No, it's not. But let me just point this out. I'm just going to read the main ability for this one real quick because I think it's kind of fun. Gold manipulation. As an action, you can target any gold within 60 feet of you to form up to a 13 5-foot diameter spheres worth of afflicted gold, allowing you to telekinetically control the gold. You cannot have more than 13 of these gold spheres under your control at once. You are required 100,000 gold pieces or 400 gold bars or 1 billion berries worth of gold to form each individual 5-foot diameter sphere this way. Once you use this action, you cannot use it again for 24 hours. Any gold being telekinetically controlled by this ability is considered liquid, but doesn't count against a devil fruit user's sea weakness, otherwise stated, and counts as difficult terrain when moved through as in liquid state. Creatures will forcibly be moved 60 feet away from you by being telekinetically controlled, returns to an empty space, yada, yada, yada. Basically, you can turn your money into a weapon. Oh, but
it's
this
just
one, yeah, but this, and then here's the hacks fruit, the barrier fruit.
Yes.
I know. My point is that there is no world where the devil fruits are good enough to be put in D&D. There's no world where just being a baseline class in this campaign setting is going to work. Because you can give your enemies these fruits. And when they die, the fruit reincarnates. So it's somewhere out there again. So someone can find it. There's no world where this is balanced. There's none.
No, there isn't.
No. Now, I admit, I like the concept of what they're doing, but this is just not balanced. And to reiterate this, and I just want to point this out, this isn't me trying to slam One Piece. This is me to try to make a point. If I'm a player, I'm not going to have fun with this. That's plain and simple. I'm not going to have fun with this because my base class is really weak, and the devil fruits are super overpowered, so I want a devil fruit. And I eat one, and I end up getting a really crappy one. What do you think, Chitter?
I'm just sitting here going, this person put a lot of effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, that's amazing. But at the end of the day, this should have been... Devil fruit should have been reflavored magical items, because then you can be like, okay, I know what to give my players. Because, like, just even tossing this out, this is a whole new system of items that you don't know what you're giving your players. You genuinely don't know. Because even you don't know what your players can do with those abilities. And if you're giving a lot of it, it's just insane.
Oh, I was wrong. There's actually legendary devil fruits on here.
Oh, fun.
Oh my god, look at the surgery fruit. It's got 2 fucking text boxes. It's way too, like, oh my god. I'm not reading that. Fuck no. If you want to read it, you can read it on your own time, folks, but I ain't reading that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm looking at these and I'm like, these are all basically like the big bad guys fruits from the fucking show. For example, the Uta Utanomi, that's from film Red. The soul manipulation, that's literally one of the big bad guys' weapons called Big Mom, who makes homies with the souls of the individuals she collects from. And this is, and you know how she got that fruit in the show? This is actually true. She ate the previous owner of it because she got hungry and was eating some fruit and ate her surrogate mom who had the fruit already. So she got the ability from it.
Yeah.
I know. The Shima Nomi Island Control. Okay, if you're in and that one, wow. I don't even know where to touch that one. I mean, if you're in a world where the sea it's mostly seas and there are islands around and you get the ability to turn into an island, there's no threat. You've removed the threat. Anyway, that's basically what I wanted to point out.
Yeah.
And
It's...
yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you and I are both like, we don't really know what to fucking say at this point.
Yeah, because this, again, no disrespect to the person who made this. They clearly put a lot of time and effort, but good God, half of this has to hit the floor, hit the cutting floor now.
But wait a minute. There's one last fruit I want to point out. Just one. One last one. Because this is the fruit of the main character, Luffy. The Hito Nomi model Nika. Now, I'm not going to read the stat block for the fruit. I'm going to read the stat block for what the fruit turns you into. So, Nika is a large celestial chaotic good god. Nika has a 26 in strength, a 20 in dex, a 24 in con, a 19 in intelligence, a 22 in wisdom, and a 25 in charisma. They have immunity from bludgeoning from non-magical attacks. They cannot be charmed or frightened. The Drums of Liberation. Any creature friendly to Nika within 30 feet of Nika cannot be frightened while Nika is conscious. Nika's weapons are magical. Nika's melee attacks have a range of 30 feet. Nika's spellcasting ability is Charisma. Nika can initially cast the following spells that require no material components. Arms of Hadar, Earth Tremor, Enlarge/Reduce, Call Lightning, Erupting Earth, Freedom of Movement, Big B's motherfucking hand. Move Earth and Wall of Stone. Nika can make 4 unarmed attacks per round. Nika's unarmed attack has a plus 14 to hit. Nika can polymorph into a giant with its size increasing to gargantuan for 1 minute. Nika's stats remain the same in this form, and its unarmed strikes do an additional 2d8 of bludgeoning damage. Okay, at what point do we have to say this motherfucker could take a Tarask?
That's probably it.
Oh no, a Tarask! What will it do? I have this. Nika, form, activate.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But the thing is that everyone, and then of course the challenge level 20. It has 300 fucking hit points. It can fly at 60 feet each round. This is so fucking broken.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's fucking broken. And yeah, I don't know what else to say in that regard. It's broken, and this perfectly sums up the problem you have with when you make homebrew. If you do not balance this shit, the first person who gets this crap is going to be the one that breaks the campaign. So you have to give it either to the newbie who isn't going to know what to do, or you have to bury it somewhere where they can't ever get it on the loot table.
Pretty much. Jesus.
I mean, like, okay, so let's see. Oh yeah, by the way, if you hit with the unarmed strike, it's 68 plus 8 piercing damage, plus 9 2d8 bludgeoning damage, and yeah, wow. If you use the gigantic colossal growth.
Just wow.
Oh yeah, no, the Tarask is gonna be like, mother. And then we also have the Lightspeed fruit, the Lightning fruit, the Ice fruit. Okay, again, we're not going to read all of these. It's just too fucking much. My point is that this is unbalanced. And if you make a campaign where you're going to have an unbalanced amount of shit, you either need to make it all unbalanced so that it evens out, or you just need to just never run it. There's no middle ground.
Yeah. It's so
Yeah. I think we're stunned to silence at this point.
yeah. This is an example of something that is not exactly it has a lot of thought put into it, not a lot of editing.
No, and that's the main point I wanted to bring up with this section of homebrews is when you are trying to fit another franchise into the homebrew space, you really got to cut some shit down. I don't know what else to tell you, because I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to incorporate as much of One Piece into D&D as possible, and I get that. But I can't say that there's any balancing in that. Like, okay, let's, like, outside of, like, the fact that the Awakening form you can't use again for 24 hours. Okay.
Like, woohoo, whatever.
Yeah, like, I don't even know if, like, you need it. Like, I think you would only use this against the big bad guy. You're not going to use this against the cannon fodder. Yeah. Anyway, is there anything you wanted to add to that, Chitter?
Nothing really. It's just, oh boy.
Right. Now, we're going to wrap this episode up real quick, but before we do, next time we're going to be talking about good examples of homebrew, which are balanced, fun, add a lot of diversity to D&D. But there is one thing I did want to point out, and it's actually a franchise that is a pretty good homebrew, in my opinion. And it is this little chestnut of a D&D book that I love to look at. It's called the Final Fantasy XIV Compendium.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I'm going to briefly go over this one now, and I'm going to send you the link if you want to take a quick look at it. But the reason why I particularly like this one as an example of a good franchise that you can incorporate with this book is not because I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy XIV. I am. I won't dispute that.
Mhm.
I don't know. No, fuck you, ad. But
Yeah.
honestly, whenever I I need to find this I need to download this one. But like recently, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because is that when you look at some of the stuff, it feels like they took a D&D book and they decided to make. I'm just gonna close. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find another version of that later. But the reason why I like this one in particular, and I'm gonna include the link to it in our description, is it felt like they took a book that was already for D&D and they did what you described as the best way to handle home brewing, and that they reskinned a few things and they made a few small changes, but nothing that's breaking basically. And we're gonna go into more detail about that next week. Um, when we talk about good examples of homebrew, we'll have some more examples. I just wanted to include that as like saying not every franchise is bad to include in as a homebrew, but there are some that do not work. Like anime, particular, like Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Bleach, all that stuff. Just it won't work the way you have planned. You may be a fan of it, but you can't role play it unless the game is specifically designed by that.
Yeah. All right. So
I think, yeah.
I guess that's it.
Yeah.
I guess that's everything for now.
I think so too. We'll be back next Monday or next Sunday, depending on how we feel like for the next episode. This is going to go up on YouTube later this week. So if you are watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Drop a like, comment, and subscribe. We are currently at 102 followers on YouTube, which I was shocked we actually got that much in our first year. And this year, we're going to aim for at least 500 before the end of the year. And we're going to be uploading a new episode every week to the best of our abilities. And we'll try to have more people on, be more engaging. My point is man, my model froze. As I was saying, we're going to be a lot more active. We're going to be coming back to this episode. I really am happy to talk about this. Next week, we'll be doing part 2 of the homebrew, where we talk about good homebrews. And if you have any recommendations, feel free to add them in the comment section down below. Me and Chitter will be more than happy to take a look at them and see if they fit our criteria of a good homebrew. Chitter, was there anything you wanted to add before we signed off?
Nothing on my end. This was fantastic.
I liked it too. All right, folks. You all have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the night. I love you all so much. Thank you so much. It's good to be back. Here's to, I think this week you can officially declare this the second season of Forgotten Table Tales, and it's good to be back. And I hope to be talking about a lot of cool stuff about D&D and tabletop games this year as well. So, peace out and have a good day.